Hi, it's Dr. Greg Emerson from the Treat the Cause Clinic. Yes, it was shut down, but she lives on as the YouTube channel and the podcast. Today we're going to talk about how we can use this crisis of the virus to come out the other side with a new understanding of food as medicine that we have traditionally known, that we have forgotten. I'm here with Tristan and Blair from the amazing Harvest Cafe in Newrybar in northern New South Wales, and we're going to be talking to them about how they see, what they see as the positives that will come out of the food industry with this terrible crisis that we're going through. So if you're interested in how we can take positives out of this change that we're going to see in the world, keep watching. This is going to be amazing. Hi, it's Dr. Greg Emerson. You've heard me talk about my work with the Apache and how they use food as medicine, and you've seen my video with Casey from the Torres Strait Islanders, how he uses wild coconuts as medicine. Well, today we're here at the Harvest in Newrybar in northern New South Wales with Blair and Tristan, who run this amazing cafe. And we're going to talk to them about what they see as changes that we need to make in our food system so that we start to understand how food is not just nutrients, but it's also medicine. And the nutrient density of that food is a critical part of that process. So let's start off with you, Blair. We were talking briefly about your ideas about food as medicine. What are some of the things that you see that need to come out of this crisis, this wake-up call for us? We've got to see this as a wake-up call. This is Pachamama screaming to us, we have to make some changes. What do you see as some of these changes that will need to and come out? I know you've got, show us your hands. Why are your hands all yellow?
I've been making jamu for our customers to support their immunity, and one of the key ingredients, of course, is turmeric.
Right. It's made your hands really yellow.
So my hands are yellow, not from smoking.
Or jaundice. So carry on. What do you see as some of the changes that will come out of this and what needs to come out of this?
Look, I think one of the byproducts of the hardship that we're now about to jump into is something that we've spoken about and looked at, and that's redefining us as a food provider and what our responsibility in that space is. And I think the way our food's created is probably one of the key components that will come out of this, and people having more knowledge, understanding and empowerment and discernment about where their food comes from. And what we look at in that space is looking locally, and having a relationship with everyone that grows the food and how that food's grown. So for me, the key ingredient into how our food is grown is through soil. And if you've got healthy soil, you got healthy plants and you got healthy people. And unfortunately, the conventional and mainstream practices do not support that narrative. So they utilize chemical inputs, which makes to them economic sense. But to me, it doesn't, because you're flooding your health system with sick people. So what the opportunity that we see coming out of this is, and something that we're now actioning, is supporting our local growers, because I've come from a farming background and I know these growers and I know the practices that they utilise, and I know their soil's healthy. So if we can start supporting that, and we're doing that through veggie box distribution, then we're doing a great service, I think, to our community. And you'll see the byproduct that as people which have stronger immune systems, have healthier guts, and therefore we're going to see less indications around this viral element.
So what you're saying is that for food to be medicine, it's got to get medicine out of the soil to make, or we've got to get the ingredients out of the soil to make into medicine. And you're saying that unless the farmer is cognizant of remineralising its soil, we're going to be getting cardboard for food.
Toxic cardboard.
Toxic cardboard, yes. If the farmer is not only not cognizant of the quality of the soil, but is also adding toxic chemicals to the soil, not only are we going to get cardboard, we're going to get toxic cardboard as a food source, which is not even food, let alone medicine. Where are we at the moment with the farmers in terms of proportions of them that understand this versus the ones who have, and perhaps is the problem that they've been forced into not caring for the soil through economics, because it's going to be more expensive to be a biodynamic farmer. So first of all, what sort of proportions are we looking at? Because you know the farmers, I don't. I mean, I deal with 2 amazing farming families to getting all my food from. So it doesn't come into my world so much because I've got these amazing families. But what proportion of farmers there, and what proportion of those farmers do you think want to be on board with soil regeneration but can't because, you know, people don't want to pay 5 cents more for a biodynamic carrot?
There's a backstory to how a lot of farmers are entrenched in this current chemical use, and that's through the banks and the pharmaceutical companies, and through their insurance protocols. So some insurers won't insure their farm unless they use chemical. So there's a bit of a cartel that seems to control our food at the moment. We're in a bubble in Byron, where it's quite rich with people which are farming in healthier practices. As far as what it looks like across the nation, I'd say we fortunately have one of the biggest organic industries in the world.
Around Byron?
No, around Australia.
Around Australia, okay.
Yeah, which I was pleased to know. I'm not really great with data and figures, but I'd say at least 80% of our food crops are grown in practices that we need to shift. And what
80% of grown that we need to improve on.
Yes,
right.
Without doubt.
But 20% are good.
Yeah.
But you're saying that's a higher. 20% is higher than a lot of countries around the world.
Yes, it is.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So what the name we give to this style of farming is not organic; it's regenerative. So that's looking at regeneration in our soils, but also encompasses the people that are working on these farms. And the model is super robust, extremely complex, and very beautiful. But it all comes back in simplistic terms into creating healthy soil and healthy biology. So the bacteria, nematodes in the soil are making relationships with these plants. They're crossing over enzymes, and what it's producing is aminos and secondary aminos that we don't normally get in our foods. And I know you're more skilled in breaking down those key micronutrients that we need. So for us, if we can educate not only consumers but farmers in that transition and show them the models that are available, and that there isn't so much an economic risk around that, because there are higher yields, there are just as good productivity and a better price point for farmers when they do make that tradition. But the one thing that I think holds back for a lot of them, I've seen here and also in collaboration with other guys in the US, is a culture. So that culture means that if a farmer is to change their practices from in a farming community, they've made a judgment call on everyone else, and there's ostracized. They get ostracized. Yeah. So and that comes back to education. That comes back to a broad scale change of the narrative around our food.
It's the philosophy
that makes it accessible for those that want to make that transition, and they're welcomed. And we need to bring more of those networks into place and more of that support into place for farmers to make that available to the guys on the ground that are doing the great work. And I certainly don't make any judgment calls on any farmer that's doing the work right now, because that's just where they're at and what they've known. And they do amazing work, and I know what it takes to do what they do, and they're not given the kudos that they deserve. All we want to do is go, hey, that's amazing, but here's the new path, and introduce a new paradigm.
And just to add to that, not just introduce the new paradigm, but to also build that network of strength. And even if you are ostracized, and there is a network of strength and support. I know you talk a lot about cells, and you were just telling me about all this works, and you've got 3 layers and nothing can penetrate. Right now, our job at Harvest is to build the network so strong that whether it be the philosophies or whether it be how people are treated or what the outcome is that there's such a strong network that it doesn't matter all of the grey noise around all of this. The outcome is that there's a foothold. We have an opportunity to get a foothold right now, and that's what we need to take. We need to take that. Right now there is the positives in this space are going to outweigh the negatives.
Okay, so let's look at that, because we've looked at the big picture. We've talked about how there needs to be a change at an insurance level. We need education to the farmers and support of the farmers, and we need to look at the soil and flow-on effects to the food and its medicine content, and that's the big picture. But let's talk a little bit more about the smaller picture from an individual perspective. How am I going to establish a relationship with the farmers? How am I going to source this food? How am I going to work out what's toxic cardboard and what's medicine? So Tristan, you take that over, because Blair's talked about the big picture. You talk about what you envisage that we're going to see are we going to all go back to farmers markets? I know people...
Look, 100%. Look, I will stop you there. That's pretty much the crux of it. The unfortunate thing is right now is that space is a tough space to be in, you know what I mean, to go down there and interact. So, how do you get a foothold, or how do you turn this into, mainstream? Literally right now, it's about trust. Right now, it's about the brands that have been in this space forever that need to step up and live and die by their word right now, and it's trust. We need to build trust, and we need to then deliver on that trust 100% every single day. And if you can't get the produce, you don't have that produce, you know what I mean? It's trust. Right now, these farmers that Blair's talking about in this transitional period, like we have an opportunity right now to make these farms the strongest they've ever been, like right now, based around the support network that they're used to of all of these other large companies and investment firms. They're all going to fall away, but who's going to step up right now are restaurants that have been doing it forever, restaurants that have platforms around education, or food providers in general, to have platforms around education, allowing people in and having it all carte blanche. You've got to be able to see right through everything you do. So for me, right now is the biggest opportunity we've ever had as a nation. Like right now, it's day zero of... I'm saying it's before virus, and now it's after virus. Let's get rid of the religious context around BC and whatever. You know what I mean? And right now, this is where we're at. It's time to use this as the biggest opportunity we've ever had. And right now, that opportunity is to go to your respected persons and stick in that trust space, because this is where it's at. And then if we can build the trust from the consumer through someone like Harvest into those farmers and set up that network that can last forever. Like, this is the thing now, is building those strong foundations around exchange of money and how it's going to happen and how you can actually move forward and eke forward in this space. It's not about retraction right now, especially in the farming space, because this is their best opportunity ever. It's about going forwards. And I know that we're in a bubble up here in Byron Bay, but with a bubble comes great responsibility. You need to set the platform up, and this is our chance now as a Byron Bay community, as a world community, to set this platform up, to shake and to stabilise this space, because it's only going to take 13 to 20%. I think Zach Bush said 13% if we move across to individual farmers.
Well, that was leaked from Monsanto. Was if there's 16% of people shift to organic practices, then it makes it uneconomical for people like them.
Like that, for the single monoculture. That was the tipping point. It's a tipping point, and that's what we're going to look at right now. And like going forward from here, like this pain that we're feeling right now is what we're supposed to. We've done this. We need to stare it right in the face and accept it. This is part of us. We made this. Stand up tall, stare it in the face. Let's be a part of it. And then what is it? What is the positives? And the biggest positive is the farmer. The biggest positive is the soil. The biggest positive is that you're going to get heard. Like for so long you can beat the drum. The one time that we lost the most amount of people in a restaurant is when you stand up too far and you say too much. But if you get in there and you actually deliver on giving people an opportunity to feel good, you give people the narrative. And what you're also talking about is narrative and philosophy. Like right now we need it. We need philosophy around what we're eating. It's not just about, hey, this is the food. But when you're at home and you got that food and you're treating it the way you should treat it, you're making love to this meal, like, these tomatoes and this dish. It is about that. It's switching the whole philosophy around what you're doing with your food and then serving it to your whole family, because you're going to get the opportunity to sit with them. You know, like it does shift the whole philosophy. You know, it's food, and it's you and your kids and your beautiful beautiful lady. I was going to say wife. I know you don't believe in the marriage, but it is. No. It's about shifting the. She said no. It is. It's about shifting the whole philosophy of making love to that produce, and then that love going through systemically changing everything, and that's where it's at.
So we've got trust, we've got education, we've got networks, we've got making love to your food.
Yes.
All very important.
And your wife.
Yes, yes, don't forget that. And I love the idea about the education. We were talking about how, you know, in Bali you go into a restaurant and the menu, the first 2 pages are then medicinal drinks, and they'll say what you've got, and you're selling out of Jamu. You know, you're not selling out of Coca-Cola now, you're selling out of Jamu.
Well, it's funny, like that's been shifting for a while. Like no sugar in the coffees. I've been making coffees for 23 years, and it's been the last, I think I get 1 coffee with sugar in it these days every 100. Right. You know, it's happening. Like everyone wants this. Yeah. You know, everyone's asked for this, and I don't mean that to be in a negative space, but.
So let's talk about the harvest, because, you know, this is when I've recorded podcasts in the past, I've come up here and done them in your garden. I love walking through your garden, seeing how that lizard's looking at me. seeing how you know, you get a lot of food from your garden. So what are some of the things that harvest are going to do? How are you going to change a little bit to, I mean, because leaders always go forth first. How's harvest going to go forth first? And one of the big things about any plan in a crisis is to orientate, what are my liabilities, what are my assets?
Sure.
Harvest is going to be an asset. How is harvest going to be an asset and lead from the front through this crisis?
So I'll start, and then you can give the meat.
You do the potatoes.
Yeah, I'll do the potatoes. Look, the fortunate thing that we have up here in the hills is that this is on brand. This is what we've been doing forever. Like we've been building and building and building to this day. Today is today. You know what I mean? Like this is it. It's on. It's game time. You know. And what we've been talking about for a very, very long time is that, you know, hospitality, the word hospice, you know, what does it actually mean to be in hospitality? You know, like what are you supposed to deliver? Like what are you supposed to deliver to your guests? You know, your refuge, safety, conversation, warmth, health, you know, the list goes on and on and on. And right now what we're going to see in this industry is that ridiculous top where all it is a two-way exchange, or even a one-way exchange of I make this food because it's my ego, and then you'll have someone judge me on that, and you should come here because someone judged me on that. That's going to fall away at the moment, right? And all that's going to be left are the people that have morals and a moral compass, people that have a multi-dimensional deliverance. Okay, so the way we consider ourselves up here is that we're a 4-dimensional product. And the idea in that space is that you have to deliver on so many levels to your community, and there is no way that by just coming and sitting on in a restaurant floor is where hospitality starts and finishes. It finishes with education, it finishes with sustainability, it finishes with regenerative practice, it finishes with health, food. Food is medicine. It finishes with the ability for people, or a platform for exchange in your community and offering that space. This is the thing. Like right now, what you're going to see in hospitality, the ones that will survive and thrive in this space are the ones that deliver on that 4-dimensional space, which is to try and nourish every single person's being. What do you need as a human? You know, not what do you need to say you've been somewhere, or you know what I mean? It's not about that at the moment. So it's delivering, and it's delivering on education, and it's delivering on every single layer, on every single platform.
I guess
bring us home with that the smoked brisket now.
I will, baby. So I guess from what we're doing right now and what we see as the future for the next however long is, and what we have access to, is delivering food to people. And the first question I asked was, what does the community need? And they need access to local food. If our markets dwindle and are shut down for whatever reason, then we've got farmers sitting on product.
Amazing
product. They can't get to access to market. So it was a week ago, we said, let's try doing some veggie boxes. And I thought, maybe we'll do 10. We did 50.
All right. So you're being the bridge between the farmer and the consumer.
Exactly,
now.
And we'll do 100 this week or more. Okay. And that's me contacting all the guys I know in that sphere. What have you got? What do you need to deliver? How can we pull together a foundational pack for people to take home and feel good about where their food comes from, and give them the nutrition they need and access to local food. So that's sort of the first port of call. The second port of call is look at what we're serving. Is it nutrient dense? Is it the comforting, safe food that people want at this time? Because we need to step away from probably what we're used to delivering in that. So that's our next stage today is looking at what is it we can bring to the table that is economically viable for our community, but also services them with the nutrition they need, and slip in some education around why we're doing it. You know, what's in your food? What is it? You know, what does that bring to your on that plate? What does it bring to your body? And how can we? And so we're then doing add-ons. We've got a wellness pack that's available to people, which has got some kraut, some bone broth, some jamu, of course, some herbal tincture, stuff to support their immunity and their gut health. So I think that's the trajectory for us right now, is to sit in that space and offer that to the community
and deliver
that to community.
And I mean deliver. When I say deliver, I mean more ways than one. You know what I mean? And also deliver. You know, at this stage, people are wanting people to step up and deliver and you know, and firm up how they feel. And like I said, we need to pass on that narrative that when they're in the house with this food, what does it feel like? It resonates differently. You know what I mean? There is a total different energy about that space, and bringing people's awareness into that is going to lift people's spirits as well. So it is about spirit lifting. You know, we can't just sit there and say, here it is, enjoy it. It's about understanding it, and that spirit's been lifted, and lift your spirits through food.
And there's also a component around any disease where it's biological, but you've also got that emotional and psychological part of it. And I think what Harvest needs to deliver in that space is safe, supportive, and friendly environment where if people need to download, need to talk, need to come to a safe space. Of course, the powers that be won't encourage that. But we've got lots of gardens out here. It's fresh air, get sunshine, and then also reaching out to people like yourself and going, how can we look at our product and what we're delivering, and how can we add to that? Yeah,
and the education.
Because that's not something that we're super educated in. I know a reasonable amount, but how you can break that down is going to be super helpful for what we deliver in the future.
We're an incredibly resilient species. We have been from day one. There's a lot of panic out there now. We know that a phoenix always arises out of any ashes, and the special forces have always taught in any crisis, stop, think, orientate, plan, take action. And when you orientate, you look at your liabilities and your assets, and our farmers are our assets. It's our restaurants and our people who prepare our food who are going to educate us that are assets. And it's great to see these two guys who are taking action. Leaders always go forth first. These guys have been preparing for this day for 20 years. The Harvest in Newrybar is taking action and being leaders and going forth first. And hopefully, everybody will use this crisis not as a time to panic, but a time to come together as a community, reflect, and support and reflect and encourage leaders like these guys here. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll do this again soon. If you like the video, make sure you share it. We have got to get this message out of not panicking, but looking for positives to come out of this crisis, how to take action to prevent ourselves getting sick now and going forward. So share the video, like it, subscribe to the channel. You can support me on my Patreon page too if you want to help me with the work I do. Otherwise, from Blair and Tristan and I, thanks for watching.